cradle me, I'll cradle you.
This is the story of Danielle Moore, a 24-year-old marine biologist from Scarborough, Ontario, and her parents Clarice and Chris.
Just for your eyes.
Danielle is such a good kid.
I'll be yours and you'll be.
After working all over Canada on environmental issues, Danielle was invited to a UN conference last March in Nairobi, Kenya. She connected in Addis Ababa onto Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302.
The phone rang at 6 o'clock here in the morning. They said, it's about Danielle. They said the plane crashed, and
Clarisse just screamed out, "Danielle's dead." That minute, I knew I was dead. I was just, forever. Everything's changed.
The plane crashed into a field about 30 miles from the airport. It hit the ground at over 500 miles per hour. There were immediate comparisons to another Boeing 737 MAX flight that crashed in Indonesia just over 4 months earlier. Both planes crashed because of a flight control system called MCAS, the Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System, which was designed to push the aircraft nose down in the event of a stall. The existence of the MCAS system was concealed from pilots, part of an effort to save airlines money on pilot training. We asked 2 American Airlines pilots to come to a Boeing 737 simulator to make a detailed assessment of what the pilots faced in the minutes leading up to the crashes. Captains Dennis Tager and Jason Goldberg have been flying 737s for many years. Lion Air Flight 610 took off from runway 25 of the Jakarta airport at 6:20 on the morning of October 29, 2018. There were 189 people on board.
So at the very first step of the flight, once they lifted off the ground, they had an immediate stick shaker, and that would be on the captain's side. This would be going off continuously. This is an indication to the pilot that the aircraft is about to stall and action is needed. This would not stop.
2 minutes into the flight, the plane banked left to follow the assigned course.
Banking.
Another alarm went off in the cabin, indicating they were turning too sharply.
Airspeed, low.
That is the startle factor, the tsunami that's hitting the pilot. And he hasn't even gotten to this beast known as MCAS.
10 seconds later, the captain requested the first officer to partially retract the flaps.
When the flaps came up is when the monster came out of the cage.
The retraction of the flaps would trigger the MCAS system. The system was misreading data from a faulty angle of attack sensor mounted on the exterior of the aircraft nose. MCAS would move the horizontal portion of the tail to push the plane nose down.
So this MCAS system would run for 10 seconds and take 5 seconds off. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, bang. And then it comes in with its 10-second run back down.
The Lion Air pilots pulled back their control columns as the plane began to dive.
You're literally trying to wrestle the airplane. At a certain point, it would be like trying to move a wall.
In the last minute of the Lion Air flight, the dive became unrecoverable.
Pull up, Marine, pull up.
At the end of October in Washington, D.C., crash victims' relatives arrived to see Boeing CEO Dennis Muilenburg testify before a congressional committee and answer some tough questions about the 737 MAX crashes.
The biggest question in my mind is why didn't you ground the plane after the first accident?
We've asked ourselves that question many times, and if we knew back then what we know now, we would have grounded right after the first accident.
But it turns out Boeing did know back then most of what it knows now. This Boeing internal document showed that in June 2018, 4 months before the first crash, Boeing engineers warned that pilots would have only 4 seconds to see MCAS was triggered by mistake and only 10 seconds to correct it, otherwise there would be a catastrophic crash.
When pilots learn that information that is of a critical safety system is not released to us, then we get very disturbed by it.
Newest arrival in the Boeing family of airliners, the 737 attracts a crowd.
At one time, Boeing had a sterling reputation for safety, but many present and former employees say that began to change when the company was amalgamated with the McDonnell Douglas Corporation in 1997. Longtime Boeing scientists Stan Sorcher and Cynthia Cole witnessed the compromise of safety.
The McDonnell Douglas managers were more cutthroat, and it was all about the bottom line, the financial, cut those costs. Their profits were more important.
In that business model, nobody ever says no. You're just going to follow the plan. That's the Walmart business model.
They didn't follow a good capitalist model. They followed greed.
The safety of these aircraft is supposed to be overseen during the manufacturing process by independent representatives of the FAA, the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration. In recent years, however, supposedly to save money and streamline the process, much of that oversight has been contracted out to personnel paid directly by Boeing. To many of the people who work here, that represents an obvious conflict of interests.
Well, the downside is someone can threaten your position at work. You can be, play ball or else. And the managers could say, you keep your mouth shut or you lose your job.
So it isn't just salary, it's your salary increase, it's your assignments. You could be reassigned to another thing. You could be replaced by somebody who is less capable of resisting pressure.
Relatives who have lost loved ones, if you could please stand so we could thank you all. Thank you for being here. If you could just stand. Mr. Muhlenberg, as I watched those loved ones stand, my anger has only grown. These loved ones lost lives because of an accident that was not only preventable, but was the result of a pattern of deliberate concealment. Boeing came to my office shortly after these crashes and said they were the result of pilot error. Those pilots never had a chance. These loved ones never had a chance. They were in flying coffins as a result of Boeing deciding that it was going to conceal MCAS from the pilots.
Senator, if anything I can leave with you today, I want to reinforce the culture of safety at Boeing. Over 5 million people.
Dennis Muhlenberg repeatedly emphasized his commitment to safety and the values he was taught as an Iowa farm boy.
Grown up on a farm in Iowa. My parents taught me the value of hard work and integrity.
At the conclusion of the hearings, the mother of one victim confronted the Boeing CEO.
Well, you talked about Iowa just like one too many times, and the whole group said, go back to the farm. Go back to Iowa. Do that. You're not the person anymore to solve the situation, but I want to say it to you directly because I don't think you understand what we're saying.
I respect that. I really do. In the end, it's about safety, and
Even if you're not capable of doing that.
I respect your inputs there. I just tell you, we are very focused on safety.
Boeing are capitalist extremists. They're right at the far end, and there's no safety that they're looking at. And it's just, I can't believe it. This is corporate manslaughter,
I just learned that today, after the second crash, after the Ethiopian airline flight 8302 who killed our daughter, who murdered our daughter. He got a bonus. How would I feel?
There are doubts that Congress will do much to rein in Boeing, especially because the company spends millions of dollars lobbying politicians, including campaign contributions to many members of the House Transportation Committee.
Do you understand how the rest of the world thinks the whole system is broken? You know, Boeing's not telling the truth. The FAA seems to be out of the loop. The senators and congressmen seem to be on the pay of Boeing. The whole system seems broken.
Well, the system is broken right now because the FAA has to be changed in its culture. It has to end outsourcing, end a system that, in effect, puts the fox in charge of the hen house.
The system is not broken.
At hearings in December, the new FAA Administrator Stephen Dixon tried to defend the integrity of his organization. He had trouble explaining this internal study from December 2018, 3 months before the second crash, showing that the FAA estimated that if the MCAS was not fixed, the system would likely cause more than 15 crashes over the 45-year life of the 737 MAX fleet, causing almost 3,000 fatalities. At the time, that information was not shared with the airlines or the public.
Is the system broken? Oh, clearly it failed. The system, the certification system failed our pilots, it failed our passengers, and it failed the globe.
Recently released internal emails show many Boeing employees had lost faith in the 737 MAX long before the crashes. In 2017, one said the airplane was designed by clowns, supervised by monkeys. Dennis Muhlenberg was removed as Boeing CEO just before Christmas, and Boeing has now admitted that pilot training on the MAX would be a good idea after all. There is a U.S. Justice Department investigation of the company's interaction with the FAA, looking to see if there was criminal activity leading to the crashes. But many doubt that any Boeing executives will be prosecuted.
No. I think that all these people in these upper echelons are too related and too intertwined. I don't think they're going to find anything against one of their own. The problem with people have died. And for Boeing to pay a fine or to pay millions or whatever, where's the justice?
In late October, Clarice Moore traveled to Ethiopia to bring back her daughter's coffin and the partial remains that were identified.
I want to open up that coffin. I want to see her. I want to hug her. I want to smell her. I want to kiss her. I want to dance with her. I want to hear her voice.
When I'm gone, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone.
I just want to continue to be the voice of Danielle and bring awareness to the public. That way, this will never happen to them.
Gonna miss the way I walk, gonna miss the way I talk. Oh, you know you're gonna miss me when I'm gone.